Good morning, Kelsey. I'm Keith Potts from Action Coach, and it's a pleasure to meet you today. So I'd love to hear about you and your business and what got you started and what makes your business tick.
It's so great to meet you too, Keith. So a little bit about me. My name is Kelsey Ray Banerjee, and I am a copywriter. And I'm also the co-founder of an agency called Obsidian Identity that combines copywriting with design. And I've been a copywriter since 2018, and only recently transferred to the agency model. So there's a lot of new learning going on there, and it's been a really exciting kind of journey working on that. And then my partner, who does the design, has been doing that since about 2011. So between us, we have a pretty decent amount of experience.
Right. So you, prior to starting your business, you were in copywriting elsewhere in town?
Oh, no. So, I actually went straight from college into copywriting, just completely. My grandfather was an independent contractor as an architectural renderer. So he would do like watercolor, traditional renderings of buildings in town. And I kind of learned a lot about the business from him and kind of having that independent, self-employed lifestyle. And I have a few other family members who are also self-employed. Yeah. So kind of right out the gate, I knew I liked writing. I knew I was pretty good at it. And I knew that I wanted to kind of have my own business. So I just kind of took the leap immediately and just kind of, learned on the go and try to take college courses that would have been relevant in some way or another to what I was doing. So that was useful.
So it was. So you actually knew when you were going to college what you wanted to do, and you tailored your college experience to match that.
Right.
That in itself is an unusual story.
I've always been kind of dabbling in creative endeavors and business since I was a kid. Like I would make coloring books and like sell them to other like my classmates, and I would do stuff online with like they'd have like fake marketplaces, and you'd sell like your writing or art or something else. And so I just kind of grew up in that environment where I had a lot of fun with it, and I saw how people were successful with it in different ways. And so I never really felt like it was something that was foreign or difficult. Like it's something that, you can do it if you put the work and the hours in.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah. Entrepreneurship is all about just the amount of effort and the number of hours you put in to be successful. It's not like you just open the doors and all of a sudden you're successful. You've got to be working at it on an ongoing basis. So for those people who don't know, what does a copywriter do? What is a copywriter?
Right. So a copywriter essentially makes or crafts all of the text that a company would use for advertising campaigns. And more now it's kind of blended with content writing, which is more educational based. And I do primarily work for the web. So I'm writing things like blog posts, social media ads I've done in the past, as well as Google ads, websites, kind of the small copy that you get when you submit like a questionnaire to a website, a contact form, if you're going through a specific platform and you get little cues what to do next, or if something went wrong or something like that. I've done those as well. So it covers a wide range of different text materials, but that's what I focus on. So
if somebody just listened to that would say, well, I can write my copy for that. I can write, at the end of these surveys, I can write a question. Why is it important to have a professional copywriter do that sort of thing for you? What difference does it make in the real world? Right.
So I think it's true that everyone can write, but knowing who you're writing for is usually the biggest challenge. I've recently done some work training some junior writers and working with them. And it's something that I struggled with when I first started, was that when you're writing, you're not necessarily writing about your product or how you think of it. You're writing about the customer and what concerns or objections they might have. And so you really have to kind of get psychological with the writing and understanding, what they want. How are you going to word it so that they're going to be incited to kind of click, the buy now button or submit something? Or how can you make the progression of their journey on your website? How can you make that as effortless and intuitive as possible so that they feel like they know you almost immediately, and that website is for them, and that they can get to where they need to go and where you want them to go. So there's a lot of research involved, and there's a lot of understanding not just the material or the software or the product, but also the customers, and their needs are always changing. So there's a lot of kind of background stuff that goes on before you actually get to the writing. And I think that's one of the things people don't realize when you're don't realize that copywriters do that much research, like outside of the main branding packet or product information that they get from the business.
Yeah, I think it's true. And it would be true to say that if you write your own copy, you're writing from your own perspective. And as a business owner, you're writing because you know your product, you know your service, and you're aware of every intimate detail, but you're writing it from that perspective, not from the perspective of the customer or your potential customer about how they would use your product, why they should use your product. So in effect, that's what a copywriter would do. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. They look at it from the other side of the table and be able to do that. So, what's a typical project? I know it probably covers the whole gamut, but you talk about content. There's a lot of talk that people do these days about content management. What goes into content? Because sort of swung away from the days, you wrote for a newspaper ad or you wrote for an ad, and now it's all about content. And you mentioned blog posts. Tell people a bit more about how a blog post works.
Right. So a blog post works in terms of, I could talk about this for a long time, so I'm just trying to center on the main points. But so blog posts are pretty much centered around any kind of SEO or search engine optimization strategy. Is pretty much how they're being used now. So what you do is you create kind of a chart or a mind map of usually items that a customer is searching for that would be related to your product, and even tangentially related. It might not be like an immediate relationship, but something that your customers are interested in that you can help them with, or are in that process of creating a solution. And you would create a series of blog posts based on these very specific topics within that mind map or that content strategy. And so there's a few different types of blog posts. I think the most effective ones, especially for small businesses to focus on, are kind of like how-to articles or tutorial articles, because people are always looking for how to do something that's going to speed up either their life or their business function. I write a lot for B2B. So I mostly focus business selling to other businesses. And so other businesses want to know how to, get more revenue faster and how to solve, problems with their software or, make something more efficient. And so I focus a lot on kind of those educational articles that aren't really promotional. They solve a problem and they kind of build trust. And then, once they've seen your articles come up a few times, then they typically are more likely to contact you for your solution. So I think that's probably the most effective way to use that kind of content.
Should most businesses have blog posts?
That's a good question. I usually work in fintech and financial services, so I would say definitely.
Yeah.
I think that having some content, you don't necessarily have to have a lot of content. There are some experts that say if it's just, you have maybe instead of 20 blog posts, you have 5 blog posts, but they're really well researched and very, very helpful and kind of, really high quality, that can be enough. I have a side blog that I do that's just for me testing things. And I have like 14 posts on there, and about 5 of them are like in the top 5 results on Google. And some of them are in the first spot or second spot. So I get a lot of traffic from just those posts, and that's kind of brought in some small like test revenue and some potential people wanting to, post their content on my page to get the traffic, even though it's not a huge site. So I think there's definitely benefits in having at least like maybe 20 to 30 posts that you can do, when you have time, or just outsourcing to someone just to get those posts in and kind of build like a core set of content that'll bring people to your site. Because in the long term, also, the longer these posts are there, and so long as they remain high quality through Google, the more kind of authority they get. So the more traffic you're going to get over time is generally my experience. So it's really kind of like playing the long game in order to acquire more customers and have a snowball effect.
Right. So blog posts are they're a great form of advertising, a great form of marketing, because they are consistently talking to people about certain things within your product, within your service that you offer. And it's a reminder to people that your business is there, this business of raise your hand marketing, so you're constantly marketing people through a blog post, and it's a cost-effective way of doing that, but it's, again, going back, circling back, I mean, it's ultimately really important that those are well written and well researched in order that you gain some credibility, and it's not just somebody banging out on a computer a few paragraphs that they think constitutes a blog post, which is sort of why you are an important part of that process, right?
Yes, I like to think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I've been very lucky with the clients that I work with, and a lot of them have been long-term clients. So it's definitely having a positive impact on their businesses. And there are more and more ways that you can measure that out as well, which is something I'm really keen on doing personally. And I think it's very easy for business owners to now kind of, even if they're not writing the content themselves, they can have their website set up where they're seeing, is this blog post doing, what is it doing? Are we getting people? Are we not getting people? Maybe they, my customers, based on how many people like article A instead of article B, maybe we should focus on features for article A for our product. So there's just a lot that business owners can do with the content, and just a lot of insights. And you
mentioned something in passing that was quite interesting. You talk about the blog posts and things, and I think we've all been conditioned to consider the social media, whether that's Facebook or Instagram, is like the only way to go. That's the trendy way to get your message out, and websites are old school, and nobody particularly looks at that. I mean, you've got to be searching, farming for your customers through social media. Do you agree with that?
I think there's a few different, I've done both social media and blog posts, so I have kind of a nuanced view on that. And that is that first, it depends on your industry. So for example, I think people in B2B and finance are going to get a lot more from blogs and content than they are from social media, especially because there could be compliance issues where you in terms of replies and the content you put out, you want to make sure you don't put your company in a liability by, all that stuff. So that's one thing. I think B2C definitely does very well on social media. I think, B2B, LinkedIn is obviously the place to go. But I think social media can be useful if you're willing not just to make content posts, but to really engage with other people. And that's really how people are getting that organic growth on social. Whereas, doing content that's a little bit more passive, like you create the content and then it just basically either gets ranked or you have to go back and edit it maybe in 6 months and make some tweaks to see if it gets, a better ranking. But you don't have to kind of maintain it nearly as much as you would on social. It's two very different approaches. And I think just for the industry and seeing where your customers are is going to be the biggest indicator of what strategy is going to be best.
Great. So I run a series of seminars, and we always try and pick a topic. I mean, I would love to invite you to be a speaker at one of those, because it's to me, it's such an interesting thing that most of my clients are 1 to 24 employees. And so it's all small business, and the lack of understanding and knowledge of how these things work, to me, is always, is an obstacle for them to overcome in order to be successful business. As a business coach, obviously, I want them to be successful, and so they need to understand all these different aspects. So it's okay, maybe I'll just reach out to you and we can talk a bit about the possibility of being a guest speaker at one of these seminars.
Definitely, I'd love to help in any way.
Yeah. These small businesses specialize in knowledge of their business, and as a business coach, the task for me is to help them understand the bigger picture and see the bigger picture, and help them navigate through that and give them the tools and the knowledge to be able to do that. When you agreed to do this interview, it's great, because copywriting is one of those things that nobody would ever think of as being an important part, but I think it's just a really really important thing to do, because it's a messaging thing, and it's got to come from somebody who sees your business from a customer perspective, and not just we're the best XYZ in the area or whatever. You have to be able to value their product. So thank you for today. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and it's been really interesting hearing about how copywriting is such an important part of any sort of marketing or advertising that you do. I look forward to talking to you soon.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.